Welcome to Garage Gym Athlete Cooldowns. These episodes are short, actionable podcasts pulled from previous interviews and content we've been publishing for the last several years. So go for a walk, hop on the rower, or clip into the bike for this cooldown episode. And so I'll go ahead and hop right into talking about habit formation because I know that is a central thread to your writing. And you write about the science of behavior change. Can you kind of elaborate on the importance of building habits?
Sure. Well, there's a short story that I like to tell that I think summarizes it pretty well. About 10 years ago, in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, Great Britain's professional cycling team they'd never won a Tour de France. They wanted to sort of get to that elite level of professional cycling, but they hadn't been there yet. And so they hired this guy named Dave Brailsford. And when they brought him in, they said, all right, Dave, what's your plan for getting us to the next level? And he had this strategy that he called the aggregation of marginal gains. And the way that he described it is that it's sort of the 1% improvement in everything related to what you're doing with your particular goal. So in this case, it was cycling. So he thought, okay, if we can improve each facet of cycling by about 1%, then we can make significant improvement overall. And so they did a bunch of things you would expect. They looked for slightly lighter bike tires, for example. They had their outdoor racers wear indoor racing suits because the indoor suits are a little bit lighter and more aerodynamic. They had their riders wear biofeedback sensors so they could see how they were responding to training individually and then, adjust the training and the programming accordingly. So there were all these things that you would expect. But then they also did a bunch of stuff that you wouldn't think a cycling team would do. So, for example, they figured out the type of pillow that led to the best night's sleep, and then they used that pillow on the road at hotels with their riders. They figured out the type of massage gel that promoted recovery the best, and they would use that. They taught their riders how to wash their hands to reduce the risk of infection and illness and getting sick so they could keep the team healthy. And so Brailsford thought, all right, if we can do this, if we can execute on this strategy of making 1% improvements in every little area, I think we can win a Tour de France in about 5 years. He ended up being wrong. They won the Tour de France in 3 years, and then they repeated again in the fourth year with a different rider. And then when the British cycling team went to the Olympics in London in 2012, they won 70% of the gold medals available. And so this idea that 1% gains make a difference, that I think is the essence of why habits are important. On any given day, about 40% of your behaviors are automatic. They're habits, according to a study from Duke University. And so if 40% of the things that you do on any given day are just automatic and routine, that adds up to a significant number of the amount of actions you take over the span of a year. And if we know from this story of Brailsford and marginal gains that 1% improvements can add up to something very significant, then it becomes clear that habits are a really important way to capture that. If you can make a slightly better choice automatically each day, if you can build a slightly better habit, a slightly more useful action, then that's going to add up to something significant. And it's true on the flip side as well. If you make a slightly worse choice each day, if you do something that's a little questionable, if you just make an exception for just this once type behavior, and you repeat that over and over again through a bad habit, then that can actually derail you. And in fact, most of the time when people find themselves in a situation like, how did I get here? Like, how did I gain this much weight? Or how am I this unproductive? Or whatever the issue happens to be. It's very rarely a question of one bad decision that just, all of a sudden turned things bad. It's the collection of many tiny choices that we make day after day that add up to something significant. And that something significant can either be positive or it can be negative. And that's why habit formation and behavior change is so essential and important to improvement in our lives, not only from a health perspective, but from productivity, relationships, and nearly every other area of life.
Thanks for listening to today's Cooldown. If for some ridiculous reason you are not subscribed to Garage Gym Athlete Programming, fix that problem right now. Go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a free trial, get started with us today. Thanks for listening.